Welcome to ConvHERsations with Kristie, brought to you by HERverse, a community where women who lead, build, and grow come together. This is a space for real, unscripted conversations with bold leaders who are creating impact. No fluff, no filters, just honest insights to help you lead well and live fully. Because at HERverse, we believe leadership isn't meant to be done alone. I am confident you are going to love it. So let's get started.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of ConvHERsations with Kristie. I'm Kristie Clayton, and I am incredibly excited about this week's guest. It is my dear friend and long-term femme, now HERverse member, Angie Dianetti. Angie, welcome. I'm so excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great. I've known you for a long time, and one thing I know about you is nobody introduces themselves the way that they do. So, Angie, I would love to have you introduce yourself to the audience.
Right. Hi, Angie Dianetti. I founded my company, Radcom, 30 years ago as a technical writing consulting company, and we have shifted and pivoted and found adjacent possible for almost 30 years, and through lots of ups and downs. In about 2014, I read a crazy book called Traction and decided to implement EOS in my organization as self-implemented with me in all kinds of seats. Thank God I found Kristie and Fim at the time and really helped along with that journey. I am a continuous learner. And as I grew through all of that, I got to the point where I was finally able to sit just in the visionary seat. And just in the visionary seat, because I tend to say that a lot, just, and then I always get irritated that I say just, because it's nothing. It should minimize you, like the word just.
Yes.
But I have been a master of finding adjacent possibilities, from going to school to get a degree in petroleum engineering and graduating in a year when the bottom fell out of the oil and gas industry. Go back further, growing up in the 70s with the oil and gas crisis and how to afford a gallon of gas that was more than $1. All of those kinds of things. So I feel adversity is opportunity, and finding the adjacent possible and keeping that growth mindset is just that is who I am. And whether it's professionally or personally with kids and grandkids and all of that, life is an adventure.
No, that is an understatement, my friend. Someone who may not be familiar with that term, adjacent possibilities, because I love that you use that. Share exactly what you mean by that terminology. I know you've kind of explained a few ways, but what does that exactly mean to you?
So it has to do with looking at what is possible. A lot of invention, people think invention is like something that doesn't exist 10 steps out, but almost all invention comes from what we already know, and it builds off of it. So for example, timekeeping in this country was really rather haphazard, and every town had its own little clock, which was fine before we had railroad travel.
Mm-hmm.
Now, all of a sudden, you have to have coordinated time schedules. So a better timekeeping system was put in place because of what was already currently possible, a new need. So in my business, it's been, when I started this business, we were doing help files for .com companies and writing Y2K documentation.
Wow.
Well, that was in the late 90s. Come 2001, all of that work went away.
Yeah.
So I had people with skill set, a communication skill set, an ability to, what we used to say, translate geek speak into English.
I love
And so I looked to, okay, the companies who were paying us money before to use these skills aren't. How do we enhance our skills and market to somebody who needs what we already do? And so we started learning how to develop instructional design and e-learning development and all of that. And again, every crisis that comes, I just kind of take a look around and see, okay, what's next?
Yeah, I love that. And so with your adjacent possibilities, I love that you kind of use that with your own integrator visionary journey as well. Because you and I have been on a very similar journey where we were both kind of the visionary and integrator all rolled into one. And then now both of us have moved into this visionary role. So how has that kind of transpired for you?
So, I always thought I couldn't be a visionary.
Oh, why is that?
Well, I'm an engineer by training.
Mm-hmm.
So very analytical, very, high fact finder. Very, very, I'm a doer. I
Yeah.
get stuff done. And it's funny is when I first read the book Rocket Fuel, I read it because I felt I needed to hire a visionary because I owned the company, but I didn't feel capable of being a visionary, or not how a visionary was defined to me. And I read the book and I'm like, oh, darn, I got to be the visionary. So what I found, though, is as I started to shed other roles in my company, and really working through the delegate and elevate and the hard ones I had to get rid of were the ones that I love doing, integrating. I could spend all day in an Excel spreadsheet, which is very unvisionary of right, but I love doing it. But it wasn't what I was great at. I mean, I was good at it and I loved it, but it wasn't going to move the company forward. So I started shedding those things. And as I found that I had time to actually sit in that visionary seat, not only did I find out that I was good at it, but I loved it. And the company, I realized how much I was holding my company back by not letting go of those other things.
Yeah, that's very true. Angie, I want to go back to something you said, because you said the way the visionary was described to me, right? What did that look like? And why did you not identify with that?
Well, I mean, when you hang out with visionaries, they all describe themselves as these kind of wild and crazy and ADHD, and using ADHD as an excuse for their inability to get things done and all of that. And I'm like, well, that's not me. I am a very set the path and then start walking it, and then tenaciously walking it. I don't tend to. I've actually had to work hard to remove blinders from myself, because sometimes I'm so focused on a path that I don't see that adjacent possible. And that's probably why I started calling it that, because it reminds me to take those blinders off and not just be focused on the path ahead.
I love that. Because I think you're right. You and I've had this conversation more than once. In fact, about my own journey as being a visionary, right? I said things very similar to what you said. I was like, hey, Angie, like, these are the things that they say are a visionary. And, they have, 20 ideas a week, and, they're like these wild and chaotic and, undisciplined and, just these creative creatures that cannot be tamed, right? And I felt very different from that. I felt like I was very focused, very similar to you, right? Very focused. I knew exactly what I wanted my organization to do. And I think where I struggled was, being called a visionary, I didn't fit those traits. So how did you start to learn, like, it's okay for me to be the visionary that I am, and kind of leaning into that?
I think a lot of it was really just practice. Like any other muscle, if we aren't using it, it atrophies.
Yeah.
So, we all do clarity breaks. But my clarity break,
right? If you're not
right?
clarity breaks, you should absolutely be doing clarity breaks.
But I found that my clarity breaks, an integrator's clarity break and a visionary's clarity break, are very different things.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, an integrator is really focusing on the how.
Yeah.
How are we going to do these things? And who do I need to do these things?
Yes.
Where as a visionary, you really need to, but you're still kind of in the weeds as an integrator.
Yeah.
As a visionary, you have to step out and look at the 30,000 foot view of the world. And it's more about, why does this matter? What exactly are we trying to get to? What does this future world look like?
Yeah.
And part of what I've struggled with really is that whole concept of visionaries shouldn't have rocks.
Mm.
Because at first I really bristled against that. Because I assumed that the reason visionaries shouldn't have rocks was because they really aren't going to be disciplined enough to do them. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is with a visionary that's got a rock is that brings them into the 90-day world.
Yes.
And a visionary, in order to see what's coming, to look for those adjacent possibles and make your shifts sooner to take better advantage of them, the visionary has to stay out of the 90-day world. So it's not that visionaries can't do rocks, but every time a visionary takes on a rock, they are not visioning.
Yeah. I love that, because it's very rarely talked about. You do hear visionaries don't take rocks. And I think for me and myself, for a very long time, I was like, I had that same concept of, it's because they're undisciplined, they're not going to get it done, that the negative aspect of it, right? Whereas when it was actually Jill Young that shared it with me, she was like, the reason that visionaries aren't great at taking on rocks is because it does transition them into a different time frame, right? I think as visionaries, we oftentimes live in the 3+ years, and thinking about, what are we going to be doing in the future? How does the company keep moving forward? And when you thrust us back into, or pull us back into the 90-day world, it really is, it's hard for us. It doesn't keep us in our unique abilities, but yet that is the world where integrators and COOs thrive, right? They love that 1 year and that 90-day time frame, because that's what they're doing. They're doing the how, and they're doing the now, whereas visionaries are thinking about future, and they're thinking about the what are we going to be doing, right?
Right. And I think many integrators want somebody to just tell me your vision and I will make it happen. They don't, if you aren't sitting in a visionary seat, or you have a company where your visionary doesn't know what they're supposed to be doing, all of a sudden you have a ship, without somebody to say, we need to go that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that happens a lot because a lot of visionaries don't know what they're supposed to do as a visionary.
That's a great, and I think it was something even I had to learn, right? I looked at my accountability chart and I was like, oh, these words are just black and white words on a piece of paper. They didn't have like true depth to them for me. And I didn't understand them in the way that I needed to understand. So I'm curious from you, when you went from integrator to, full on visionary, leaning into that role of only, as you said, how did that occur for you? Like, where did you see yourself being able to truly thrive in the visionary role, and that transition from being kind of that doer, the integrator role, into more of the strategic thinker and planner? How did that shift occur for you, and what were you able to lean into to be able to truly take on that visionary role?
So I think part of it really is it was very hard at first
Yeah.
because I was used to a lot of structure and didn't necessarily know how to help the team. What do you need from me?
Yeah.
So probably again, as an engineer and a former integrator, I really started to put together a scorecard for myself.
Mhm.
It was not the kind of scorecard that the integrator and the team leaders have, but I needed to have some intentionality about my activity, not just randomly wandering around. So, what kinds, get out and talk to the community. Well, who do I need to be talking to? How often do I need to be, so where should I be networking? Who should I be networking with? Where should I be learning? Because a lot of times a visionary is about learning and being aware with what's going on in the world. Something that when we were an integrator may have felt like wasting time.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right. So for me, I made the transition by scorecarding it. And one, to make sure that I was hitting all the areas I needed to hit, and not just going to every happy hour in town, or so to be intentional about who I was meeting and who I was getting the message in front of. I'm, as many of us, we would read all day long every day if we could, which is part of a visionary's job, but not just that.
Yeah.
It's, again, read with intention. What am I hoping to get out of and share out of this book?
Yeah.
And the hard part for me as a very linear person is when a book is really not good, is to give myself permission to stop reading it.
Right. I know that's really hard too.
It goes against every brain in my body to not finish something.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. But I'm glad you brought this up, because I love how you said it's the opposite of things that like the integrator side of you was just naturally, like innately doing, right? And it was something that that was a huge transition for me too. And oftentimes, Angie, what I found myself when I would wake up, I'd be like, okay, let's get to work today. I'd have to slow down and start to realize, well, wait a minute, your brain is immediately going to integrator responsibilities. And you have somebody else that's doing that now. So don't step on her toes. So
Right.
like sit back and think about, okay, what are you doing today to fulfill the visionary role? And my team said something to me one time that really just struck me and hit home really, really hard. They said, Kristie, we need you doing the things that only you can do. Right. And so then it was like, okay, wait a minute. I'm the only one sitting in the visionary seat. What responsibilities do I have? Because nobody else is doing these things. And if I'm not doing it, it means nobody's doing it. Right.
Right.
And so I crafted a morning routine that really helped me identify. And that's, working with visionaries. I really, truly, one of my biggest passions is I get to coach visionaries and how to make this transition. And it's been so fun watching visionaries truly understand and take on the role as the visionary, right?
Yeah, I don't think we give them enough. We don't give us, because we're visionary.
Yeah.
So that's a slip back into integrator mode. Speaking of visionaries as them.
Yes.
But I think that we need, just in general, integrators and organizations need to give their visionary and remind their visionary of their value and their purpose.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that our integrators can really help us by saying, this is what I need from you.
Yeah.
And I think all visionaries need more of that than they get.
I do agree with you. I do, because it was one of the questions I had for my own self, right? When I first transitioned over, because I was immediately going, and listen, I was an integrator for almost 20 years, right? So it was so innate in me to go straight to those responsibilities. And now a transition over to this not brand new, but a different role for me. I played visionary and integrator for a long time, but to be solely in the visionary role was very, very different. And I don't know about you, Angie, but one of the things that I realized is the things that I was doing as the visionary, it didn't feel like, quote unquote, a job, right? I was like, but that's what,
yes.
that's what I do. Big relationships. Kristie, go have the conversations with, some of our biggest relationships. And I'm like, that's the job. That's just what I do.
But I think that is actually where some of the guilt comes in.
Yes, 100%.
Because it doesn't necessarily feel like work, and you look around you and you see people working really hard, and you mean my job's to go to breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
Yeah. Yeah, but I loved what you said earlier too, though, because what I realized is it's not just going to breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but it's going with intentionality, right? What is my purpose here? How am I showing up, and what am I gaining from this conversation? And so it was when I finally realized, no, this is the job. Like, your role is to go have these big conversations. Then it shifted to, great, how am I showing up to have these big conversations?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
And then bringing back to the team, and sharing with them and making sure that they now know. That was a huge, huge shift.
Absolutely. I still sometimes struggle with that, and I'm still working on what's the right venue for doing that sharing.
Yeah.
Because again, as visionary, and especially as a visionary owner, sometimes just excited about something.
Yeah.
And it's part of the 3-year, or even the 10-year, or what we call Land of Awesome.
I love that.
I just need to share it and put a nugget in your brain. I don't need you to actually do anything.
Yeah.
But sometimes we start to become that excited visionary the more we spend time in that area, and our excitement and passion about these things translate into, I need to act on this.
Yeah.
And hopefully you have a good integrator that can discern that part.
Yeah.
It's having the discernment piece that can say, okay, I get this, we need to take some action, or we don't. And without that solid integrator that can discern that, and I think we're both blessed that way.
Yes. I do. I have an amazing integrator that, we've worked together on that too. And there are certain cues that she's picked up from me. Things like, hey, if you hear me talk about this 2 or 3 times, it's because I'm serious about it, right? Just say it once, kind of jot that note down mentally, right? That, hey, Chris mentioned this, but if I mention it 2 or 3 times, we need to start digging into it, right?
Right.
And if I fill out an impact filter, that means 100% I'm all in. Right?
Right. If you've taken the time to do that.
Yes. Yes. I love this conversation though, Angie, because I do think that there's so many visionaries that I talk to that say that this has been part of their journey, right? So if you are listening and you are, you're kind of in this either transition of I was the visionary and integrator, and now I'm moving solely into the visionary, please hear both of us saying you are not alone in some of the questions or some of the things that you may be feeling. And one of the things that I hear the most is, I've always been the doer, right? I've always been that person. I've been the person for the entire team. And, I'm that go-to. And one of the hardest things to transition is, stepping out of being in the day-to-day, in the works, doing all of the things and truly letting your integrator be that person. And then transitioning over to like, what is it that the company truly needs from you now, and seeing value in it. Right. And I think that was the struggle for me for a while. It was like, I'm just doing the things that I love to do. I'm having the big conversations. I'm sharing Fem and HERverse and all the things that we're doing. And that just was so natural and comfortable for me that it didn't feel like a job. It was just what I do. But no, that is the value you bring, because most visionaries are also the owner, or at least a partner in the company. Not all, but most. And so nobody shares the story quite like you do, right? They don't share that story. They don't get as excited as you do. And that was a huge moment for me to realize too, is what I am doing is sharing the story. I'm building these relationships, and I'm the one in the company, like, this was meant for me to do that. That's the value I now bring.
Absolutely.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I love that. So if you're listening to this and you're hearing it, please hear Angie and I both say that we both have been on this journey. We both felt that. You are not alone, my friend. You are not alone in that piece of it. Angie, I want to ask you just one more question. What was that moment that changed things for you to really go from being the integrator to being the visionary and just wanting to sit in that seat? What was that transformative moment for you?
Oh, it really kind of started as I'm trying to work as owner on succession planning and building. My vision for my company is to have something that outlasts me.
Mm.
And when you have had people working for you for 10, 15 years, and there's no place more for them to grow, because that's also been really important to me, is that I want anybody who works for me to be growing. And whether they stay with me for a year or two or 15, it needs to be a growth. I don't want anybody stagnating. I don't want somebody to have 15 years worth of 1 year of experience.
Mm.
They need to be growing. And the only way to make room for that growth was for me to let myself grow. And and when you stay, our mutual dear friend Mary Pat Knight, talks about that comfort circle.
Yeah.
And what I was realizing, I was very comfortable in the integrator role, but my team couldn't grow, and I wasn't going to grow if I stayed there.
And the company too, right?
And the company too, exactly.
So true.
And I didn't want to be working for the next 20, 30 years. And if I stayed in that role, that's exactly what I'd be doing.
Yeah. I knew this was going to be such a great conversation, and I'm so glad you came on to really talk about this topic. That I think it's going to definitely be one of those things where one of those episodes where people get to listen to it and say, "Wow, I got some big nuggets out of this."
I hope so.
Thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your experience. You know how I love to transition our conversation is to talk about honor empower, and inspire. And listen, if this is the first time you're listening, honor, empower, inspire means a lot to me. So we'll start with honor. Honor really truly for me means honoring a woman of a past generation that has done something significant, either for you personally or for, community or world at large. So Angie, I'm really curious, who is a woman that you want to honor?
I have to go with Ada Lovelace.
Okay.
Ada Lovelace was the first computer programmer, a woman.
I love that.
She was an English mathematician. She was married to Lord Byron. Computer programmer in 1815 is when she was born. Whatever year that was, where she would have been an adult and programming computers. These were analog computers, not digital computers, but still the fact that it was a woman who at that time, when women weren't mathematicians, just love her.
Love that. A trailblazer. I love that.
Yes.
You would pick somebody like that too. A true trailblazer. What about empower? Empower for me really is thinking about a woman of a current generation who's in business or leadership today that you either hope to empower or that empowers you to be your most. Who would that be?
I'm going to go with our mutual dear friend Ruthie.
Oh yeah.
And here's why. Ruthie is older than I am, and every time I start thinking I'm just too old for this, and I look at her and I think she didn't start learning a lot of this stuff until her late 50s, and who am I at my age to say I'm tired
yeah.
So she's a learner. She's a sharer. She gives deeply. So right now she's kind of my role model of I can keep doing this.
I love that. Ruthie is one of the most amazing people on the planet too. She is that kind soul. I love that you mentioned her. She's incredible. And then inspire is really thinking about a woman of a future generation that you hope to inspire. Who would that be for you?
I got to go with my granddaughters. I'll be selfish on that one, but all young girls and young women because I can look at my daughter-in-laws as well. The women that came before me, I was like a little younger than the bra burning generation. I'm still baby boomer, but I'm a young enough baby boomer that they were the real trailblazers along that let me go to school to become an engineer, that accepted me as a business leader, all of those kinds of things. What I see in the younger generations is keeping that ability for them to be able to decide what they want to do, go do it, and continue to have the things that we have earned that I feel in some ways are threatened right now, to protect those rights of our ability to choose our own path.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And yes, let's keep forging forward, keep moving, trailblazers coming forward, and continue moving women in leadership ahead. I absolutely love that. Angie, thank you again. This has been so much fun having conversation with you. Hey, listen, if somebody wants to get in touch with you and talk about Radcom or talk about the visionary to the integrator to visionary journey, how do they get a hold of you?
Probably, to be honest, the best way is through LinkedIn. Ada Dianetti on LinkedIn is reach out. I will always accept people who are wanting to talk about their business, about their personal. Other than that, Radcom's website is radcomservices.com. hopefully brand new website coming out this week. It was supposed to go Friday, but I think we're shooting for Wednesday. So
nice. Well, that's exciting, friend. I can't wait to see that. Y'all, seriously, this has been an amazing episode. I'm so excited that Angie shared her journey. I hope you found nuggets of wisdom and inspiration from it. And listen, if you are a visionary who is on this path, keep going, my friend. You are doing amazing work, and you are the only one in your company that does what you do. So congratulations, and best of luck with everything. And listen, reach out anytime if either one of us can be of service to you. We love talking about the visionary and the integrator and how to empower others and yourself in your roles. See you next week. Have a good one.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of ConvHERsations with Kristie. I hope you're walking away with a few nuggets of inspiration, maybe a new perspective, or just a reminder that you're not alone in your leadership journey. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend, drop us a comment, or tag us with your favorite takeaway. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, keep showing up, keep leading with heart, and keep building the kind of life and leadership that feels true to you. I'll see you in the next ConvHERsation.